Hello, my name is Andrea.
Christian.
I'm Karen, and we're team
Number 4.
We're going to present to you the Incoterm,
CIF.
Cost, Insurance, and Freight. Enjoy the video.
The beginning of this story comes with a zoo in Australia that bought 3 animals to a zoo in Mexico: a lion, a giraffe, and a cow. The two of the institutions came to an agreement to deliver the animals CIF, which means carriage, insurance, and freight delivery. The journey started in Mexico when these 3 animals were captured and taken in a truck to a port to be sent in a boat with final destiny, Australia.
In this situation, the seller must provide the goods and the commercial invoice in conformity with the contract of sale. The buyer must pay the price as provided in the contract of sale. The seller must obtain, at his own risk and expense, any export license or other official authorization necessary for the export of the animals. And the buyer must obtain, at his own risk and expense, any import license or other official authorization for the import of the animals and for their transit through any country. The seller must contract for the carriage of the goods of the type described of the animals. There is no obligation by part of the seller for the contract of the insurance, but that's his responsibility to procure a marine insurance against the buyer's risk of loss or damage. By part of the buyer, there is no obligation of carriage and insurance.
But what would happen if there is an accident during the travel?
The seller must render the buyer at the latest request, risk, and expense every assistance in obtaining any documents which the buyer may require for the import of the goods. The seller must provide the buyer with the necessary information for procuring any additional insurance. The buyer must pay all costs and charges incurred in obtaining the documents, reimburse those incurred by the seller in rendering his assistance in accordance therewith. The buyer must provide the seller with the necessary information for procuring insurance.
The seller must deliver the animals on board, and the buyer must accept the delivery and receive the animals from the carrier.
The seller must give the buyer sufficient notice that the goods have been delivered, as well as any other notice required in order to allow the buyer to take measures which are normally necessary to enable him to take the goods. The buyer must, whenever he is entitled, to determine the time for shipping the goods and the port of destination, give the seller sufficient notice thereof. The seller must, at his own expense, provide the buyer without delay with the usual transport document for the agreed port of destination. The buyer must accept the transport document if it is in conformity with the contract.